right, welcome, welcome. Good evening, everyone, and all. My name is Lester Barron, and I'm here to be with you this evening to have an amazing conversation in our Dominica Livestock Cooperative educational series for 2025, kicking it off very early here, first weekend of January. And I am so honored to have our guest speaker here with us tonight, my friend, Mr. Sam Golding, all the way from College Station, Texas. Mr. Golding, welcome. Good evening, sir. It's good to have you.
Hey Chief, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, it is truly our honor to be with you tonight. And
Likewise.
how are you and the family doing?
Family is great. Family is great. We are bracing for some 30 degrees weather in the next day or two. Thank God
Wow.
I'm not starting kidding season as yet, but yeah, it's about to be some cold temperatures heading our way.
Wow. You know, that's one of the things that I'm thankful for, Sam, is that our friends in the Caribbean don't have to deal with this weather.
They're blessed.
Exactly, exactly. Well, speaking of blessed, bro, I want to, first of all, as we kick off this series and you're our first speaker, I'm so grateful for that. This is being recorded so that people can listen to it over and over. But I want to thank you so much, Sam, because of what you've already done to support our farmers in Dominica. And I want to give you honor and recognition for your generosity, right? And if you look at the Dominica website, livestock website, dominicalivestock.com, we've said thank you to Sam. If you look here on the left, and his contact information is right there on the screen. But Sam has supported us, and he actually gifted some straws to our farmers in Dominica, when some semen straws, goat semen straws. And Sam, we want to just appreciate you, bro, and say thank you for all that you're doing. If any of you would like to get in touch with Sam, you can go to dominicalivestock.com, and his email is there. You can always email him directly, and his Facebook is there with all of his outstanding genetics that he provides. So Sam, let's talk about it. Let's go to the beginning. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna have some fun, and you were gonna say something, so go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to expand on what you said about that experience we had last year. To be honest, last year I facilitated several shipments of live animals and semen to multiple countries. However, the Dominican experience was the most heartfelt one, and one of the main reasons was not just because of my affiliation from my wife's family standpoint, but was more around the synergy and the humility and the support that the farmers, acted on in a new technology to the country. And I was just moved by how it was inspirational to see how folks were synergized and motivating each other. And it was, believe me, it was one of the, to me, it was my best business deal. And so it was just incumbent that I supported the farmers a little bit more by also providing some free straws of semen. That was the least I could do.
Wow. Well, we're very grateful, and I'm so excited for all the things that we get to do together, what we get to discuss tonight. And one of the things I was preparing for this call tonight, and there's a saying that goes, expansion only occurs when there is pressure. So if you think about a balloon, okay, the balloon will never expand unless you put pressure through the mouthpiece that will expand the balloon. And what we're doing here is expanding an idea that started off first as a thought of how we could potentially get artificial insemination in Dominica. And then that expanded to the checklist of how to do it, even if it wasn't perfect. But guess what? We saw it through, and we were able to get the straws to Dominica. And that process created pressure, and it brought a lot of people together. And that pressure now was able to, one of the catalysts to create the Dominica Livestock Cooperative. So I just want to thank you, Sam. Even before we had any of the foundation laid, you caught onto the vision of what we were doing. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm humbled. Thank you, guys.
Yes. So Sam, let's go to the beginning. You growing up in Jamaica, all right? And what the heck? How the heck did you get into goats?
So I'm from a family of farmers, and my dad was a large cattle raiser or rancher. And goats was one of our multi-species portion of the operation that we did there. I've always had an affinity for the goats. They were always just, that was my, if I go, we lived in the city, but the ranch is in, maybe 2 hours away. And on weekends when I spent time on the ranch, the first place I hit was the goat barn. And summer holidays, just to get out of trouble, instead of staying home, I would be in the bushes on the ranch with some of the workers my dad hired, and that's how I spent most of my summer holiday. So it's just been a lifelong affinity and love, and it's my, to be honest, it's my safe space. My number one activity besides my family is goats, and if you talk to my wife, she'll say goats are my top priority. It's unfortunate, but sometimes I tend to agree with her. But it's just been a lifelong passion of mine.
Wow, beautiful. So fast forward, you grew up in Jamaica, and let me come back on with you here. You grew up in Jamaica, and then you have this passion is born with the animals, and now you move to the United States, right? So what does that look like? You moved to the US. How did you start getting into the goat industry up here in the US?
So I came to the US because of goats. I connected with a professor at Purdue A&M, who is Jamaican. He was one of the assistant dean, I believe, at the time. And he had heard about this young kid who was doing a lot of shows in the Jamaican circuit. And we had a chat on one of his visits, and seemingly he was impressed with what I had to say and what I did. And so a bad experience with my first job where I got fired. Long story, but he said, "Hey man, we got to get you to Texas." And I think it would be a waste of talent if we kept you in Jamaica and didn't get you some exposure. And my honest plan was to after getting my scholastic achievements, I would have gone back to Jamaica. Unfortunately, that event only occurs to vacation. We never know what the future holds. So goats gave me an education. I got scholarships for undergrad, and when I did my master's, it was research studies around goats and the microbial effect of carcasses using different treatments. So it's just been, academics or goats gave me almost a free education, to be honest. So the moment I came to Texas, though, literally, I came in August '98, and by maybe October, I'd already started, my journey on building my own herd. I was a member of the rodeo club, and they had some empty space, several acres, and I asked the president of the club, can I buy some fence and fence it around and put some goats on it? So I started buying my first, then these were just commercial goats. I couldn't afford a registered goat at the time. I did a lot of cutting of lawns and cleaning houses and working overnight shifts, and just started building my herd that way. And to be honest, to this day, some of my original genetics, those lines are still evident in my herd, whether from semen that I've collected and used from time to time, or just the ancestral lineage of some of those original animals that I have or had.
Wow. And Sam, I'll tell you, that speaks volumes of your diligence and your commitment, because I have been to your farm and I've seen the quality on your farm, and I thought I saw boer goats until I went to your farm. I'm just being real, okay? And
Well,
so I just want to
don't hide the fact that you had some nice animals too. So don't be that humble today.
well, you know what? I'll tell you that, when you have exceptional quality, it's very evident to see it with the eyes, right? And not only that, I just want to applaud your diligence, because it takes diligence to build something. And people don't understand, like, you and I came to the US the same year. I came in July of 1998,
And
right?
that's all.
And so 26 years of you and I being in the United States, away from our islands where we were born, But guess what? I've seen you master your craft over these years, and I just want to honor you for that, because people think that you set up shop today and then by next week you're an expert. But I would say that one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you've really put in more than 10,000 hours, maybe many times over, to become a master of what you've created. So thank you for your diligence, because we're the beneficiaries of your diligence today.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So
So
let's go
let
ahead.
me just caveat the conversation to a confession. The last time you did the same thing to me, and I was sharing my resume and my experiences, and it was as long from Roseau to the Savannah up in Salisbury. So we're not going to do that today, because the honest truth is, you know, at 48 years old and doing raising goats for 48 years, the honest truth is I still make mistakes and I still learn every day. Just today, I took some calves to the auction, and just having a conversation literally with a guy who heard about me and just wanted to meet me and visit with me. And just one little conversation that got sparked, he was telling me about the deworm medicine that he was using and how he's using it and how he's getting successes out of it. Now, Mark, this is a guy who's probably started raising goat less than a year and a half. True rookie to the business, in my opinion. But I was able to learn something from him. We exchanged numbers. We ended up having a further conversation on my way back. And, you know, it's just amazing how, despite the accolades and the years of experience, and this is what I want to echo throughout this dialogue today to you guys, is that we all need to learn from each other. And to be honest, the Dominican team, based on what I've seen, or based on what I saw last year, guys, you have jockeyed for position to be in the best situation to where you can be successful. One thing I want to beckon on to you guys, and let's just be honest, it takes a team. There's no, Lester Moran may have, let's assume you have the best goats, but Lester Moran cannot take Dominica out of the food security or food insecurity deficit that is coming our way. 2 years ago, we had a drought in Texas and the southern region of the US. A lot of ranchers sold out their cattle for pennies on the dollar. Right now, the average price per pound for $400 to calf, 4,600 pound calf, is about $3.85. Back then, 2 years ago, when there was a glut because everybody was trying to get out of the business because it was cheaper for them not to raise cattle and sell it for whatever they could get, calves were running about 60 cents per pound. So now it is over 7 or 8 times the amount for, you know, the dollar value for cattle right now, and even calves. And so, you know, just want to make sure that you guys understand the task at hand. It's not just about raising goats. They're cute, they're nice, I've always wanted. No, it's more about how do I make sure that Dominica is positioning itself for what's to come. And I said that the last time. I just want to rivet that and keep reminding you guys. And like I mentioned the last time, I work for the largest food distribution company in the world. And right now, it's just amazing that we were insightful and proactive in figuring out how were we gonna source cattle when volumes, or when volumes would be low and prices would be through the roof. How would we have leveraged, you know, margin compression to where our end customers are not saying, well, we can't afford beef, so we're going to take it off our menu. And so, you know, we have to do some strategy. And I'm just telling you guys, this conversation tonight will be more of a chat than a presentation. And believe me, I'll be picking on folks randomly because we're family and there's no dumb questions. And I may ask some dumb questions throughout the conversation. Bear with me, like I said, I'm still learning. So we're just gonna have a chat, guys. Let's just have a chat about goats and raising goats, and you know, it's fine and dandy to talk about Sam Golding and Goldmine Boers, but that's such a broken record right now. I think we got some bigger fish to fry. So thank you guys for coming in, and let's chat goats, man.
I love that. And Sam, I appreciate you because all greatness begins with humility. And I appreciate you saying that you learn from everybody and everybody learns from you. And that's how it works, right? And so we're gonna chat tonight because I love this open forum and this laid back forum. And Sam, a lot of people don't know how this came about. So I'd like to introduce the idea before we chat here together
Okay.
to everybody about the Dominica Livestock Cooperative. So when we started on the process, and there was a group of us, like you say, it's not just one person, and no one person can get the credit. When we started, we wanted to ensure that we could get organized and be a group on the island, which people would take seriously, right? And so a group of us came together, and we launched the cooperative initiative, and these were the people that were voted into position now at the cooperative. So I want to thank all of the leaders of the Dominica Livestock Cooperative, from our president, Mr. Danny Edmond, to our vice president, Mr. Colonel Mills, our treasurer, Magdalene Kofi, our secretary, treasurer, Vernon Joseph, our secretary, Tashara Bruman, one of the directors, Mr. Dylan Williams, and myself as the public relations officer. So when you see us working alongside the supervisory committee with Mr. James Christian, Vandel Esprit, and Renee Lenk, that is literally what you're seeing happening tonight. Is the Dominica Livestock Cooperative, short form DLC, is putting on this educational series because we really believe that if we're going to build an industry together, like what Sam is discussing, if we're going to have food security, that is exactly what we need to do, is to have the education behind it, have discussions, and then now implement it and put it into action. So Sam, where would you like to start tonight? Your floor is open to you.
So let's just kind of level set, where we are right now, and the question out, just anyone, what's the range or herd size or the amount of goats? Is there anybody on the call or the chat tonight that has never raised goats or has no goats?
Yeah, so the format we're doing tonight, Sam, with the chat is the people that are the members of the Dominica Livestock Cooperative. They're the ones that are going to be interacting first, which is nice.
Okay.
So I see a few of them on here. So if you're a member of the DLC, a paid member of the DLC, thank you. The floor is open to you first. I think I can go, and if somebody unmutes, they can speak. I could say safely, Sam, the average herd size in Dominica, 5 to 10 goats. But then the bigger farmers would have 40, 50, some 60 in that range. But I don't think there's anybody yet. Maybe 100 at the very max. But if somebody else knows on here, feel free to let us know. So what are your thoughts on that now, where we've a ground zero start for us?
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that I normally like to share with folks, and this is from mistakes that I make, is how do we raise goats, and how do we raise goats in tropical climate? One of the unique things about where I am in Texas is it's probably the most subtropical area of Texas I am, and I strategically relocated to this year because my goal back in the day was I wanted to raise goats the way they would be raised in the islands. And Lester has gone to my ranch before, and he can attest to the fact that it's a very simple operation with some pretty cool animals on it. And the reason is and it wasn't a matter that I couldn't afford to utilize infrastructure or invest in infrastructure. I strategically wanted my animals to be hardy. There were times when I'll be out of town and my goats wouldn't see a human being for 4 or 5 days. And so, it's a learning process or training ground for myself and my animals to be self-sufficient. And so, wanting to speak to someone with a small number of animals that's interested in growing, or an individual who was not raised goats before or currently doesn't have goats. When you're planning on buying an animal or animals from another farmer, one of the first things you want to do is ensure that you have the facilities in place. And pretty much all that require is a roof and a dry floor. Now, like in Jamaica, they go fancy and they've used slotted floors, and there's a, you know, it's a debate on whether you clean your floors frequently or do you raise goats on slotted floors. I've done both, even in Texas. And the only thing I can say is that the need for slotted floor for me was simply because the area that I had the goats at the time, it had a tendency to flood. So if you're not in a flood zone area, in terms of facility, prior to purchasing your animal or acquiring your animals, keep it simple. Keep it simple, yet secure and waterproof. So make sure you have a good shed. Make sure that there's no water logging in your area, and try and clean it out as frequently as possible so that you can maintain good sanitation. You don't want your neighbors to be complaining about the high acidic smell or the urine smell from the feces and all that stuff. So you want to make sure that, you know, you're also being a good fellow citizen in your neighborhood. Besides your building, prior to getting the animal on your property, I normally recommend having a small quarantine area, whether it quarantines just a few animals or up to 50 or 100. You want to have a small area where you quarantine animals. And the reason why I'm going to emphasize quarantining animals initially. So let's say that you bought or you're leasing 10 acres of land. That animal is virgin to goats, never had goats before, or haven't had recent history of having goats. If you buy a goat from Sam Golding today, and Sam Golding said, hey, I dewormed the animal yesterday. But you know, Sam might have made a mistake. It wasn't the animal that he sold he dewormed, it was another one. So now you're bringing an animal on your property, on your virgin land, that is going to introduce all those parasites on your property. And so my strong recommendation is have a small area. Normally when I buy animals, whether it's from a reputable breeder or if I buy commercial animals just to go in my commercial herd, the first thing I do before they get off that trailer or out of the cage or however I hold them is they get a shot of deworm. They must get dewormed, and then they get isolated. And I isolate them for about 30 days. And it's a little bit difficult because, you know, it's tedious. But I'm trying to mitigate not bringing a bunch of new parasites on my property. And unfortunately, it already exists. So it's an ongoing management practice that I have to keep trying to stay ahead of. But a lot of farmers, both in the US and in the island, the biggest problem they have, besides predial larceny or dog attack, is parasites. In fact, that's a worldwide issue. And I just want to you know, have you guys strategize your operation where you manage the parasites. So for example, this year I found out that I have a barber pole issue. And normally I have my animals on pasture. So in the midsummer when the grass was high, I decided that I was going to buy hay and I was going to zero graze everybody. Now that is very, very in opposition to my typical practice because my animals, their job is to go out there and work, meaning eat grass or shrub or climb a tree if they have to, and go to work. But I made a conscious decision that I was going to zero graze everybody for at least 2 worm cycles. And so for me, I said, well, I'm going to push it a little further, 60 days. And the reason why I did that is because I brought in some animals from Tennessee that were supposed to be on a shipment. And because of spacing at the time, I had to put them on a pasture. And even though they were dewormed, based on the urgency of that shipment, I mismanaged. And my opinion is that's where that high worm load or worm count got reintroduced on the property. And so, like I said, my deal was I zero grazed the animal a couple worm cycles to where they were not out there ingesting those parasites and starting the cycle. And also, guys, while I'm saying this, please, if you have a chance, take notes about understanding the worms, the worm cycle. It's a powerful tool to understand because it gives you an idea on when to deworm or what's the best time where you can apply or administer dewormers to get your best benefit and how frequent. So anyway, just wanted to share the fact that, internal parasites, whether it be coccidiosis or worms, especially right now, barber pole worm, which has now been a worldwide issue, that's something that you must manage. So like I said, you get a goat today, you get it dewormed, and I strongly recommend when you're deworming the animal, contact another breeder before. If you follow the label, most labels, if not all wormer labels, are not necessarily the research wasn't for goats. At best, it may be for sheep. And so you may have to, well, not may, you need to deworm more aggressively when you're deworming the animals. And then there are some dewormers that you use that can create abortion. Maybe the animal was early bred before you got it, and the breeder didn't recognize that there was a mate in recently. It may cause an abortion. So you want to contact one of your local resources along with your veterinarian. And by the way, let's talk about veterinarians, guys. Critical to any operation. One of your mentors need to be your veterinarian. I know Dr. Sentimi, I believe he works with the government. Not sure if you have additional vets on the island, but make sure you are in close contact, almost on a friendly basis with your local vet. Because in the time of need, when you need a vet to come by for an emergency, including C-section or something is affecting your herd that you just can't figure out and you need some technical resources to help you go through it, that vet is probably your best lifeline. And so, and feel free to tip your vet. Give him a bunch of banana and some yams and some figs, and treat your vet like you're treating, just don't use their service even if it's free. Take care of your vets because they're a good resource to have. So let me just pause right here.
Yeah, good place to pause. Thank you, Sam. Because and by the way, as you're saying the points, I'm typing them in the notes so that everybody can look at the notes.
Okay.
So Sam, that is one of the reasons why we created the educational page on the Dominica Livestock Cooperative website. And I keep pointing people there because as you're teaching us stuff and as you're telling us, we are updating that on the website as well. So Sam, anything, I'm gonna go scroll through this with you a little bit, but maybe talk about the FAMACHA test real quick, if you don't mind. How can a farmer really quickly, especially because of our climate in the Caribbean, how can they identify very quickly if the animal has worms?
Well, let's just look at the middle picture because that's probably one of the most real life picture. The image at the bottom where the eyelids look white, that is an animal that's on the verge of dying. That animal is highly infested with parasites, and that's probably a blood-sucking parasites, aka barber pole worm. And that animal needs to see a vet. It's going to take more than just a dewormer to remedy that issue. It may take getting additional vitamin B, B complex, B12, including iron, and maybe some other supplements to keep that animal alive. So if you have an animal that is that far gone, there's no group chat that can help you. You're going to need to contact your vet for that one. And just a lot of folks have limited resources financially. But sometimes you have to look at it, okay, what is the animal worth to you? And if this animal is worth far more than the vet bill or the trip to the vet, you may want to invest in getting this animal, keeping this animal alive, and learn from the, you know. So the image on the bottom, that's an animal that is in really depraved condition. Second image to the bottom, that's an animal that definitely needs to be dewormed immediately. May require multiple, maybe a 10 to 14 day interval deworming, aggressively treating it. The third image in the middle, that's an animal, you know, to me, that animal may just require routine deworming, which I practice. I'll never tell anyone that I have a parasite resistant herd. I know there's a lot of folks who claim that, but my opinion is that, or my experience has been, it could be parasite resistant to your facility or your property. But I promise you, I bought parasite resistant animal before and they didn't make it within 2 months of moving. And that could be because of stress and all of the other factors why now their immunity got lowered. So, you know, that animal, that eyelid in the middle is one that I would say is definitely okay. Is not overly ridden or even burdened by worms, but I would definitely still, on a routine basis, maybe once every 3 or 4 months, I would still give it a shot of deworming. 4 and 5 are excellent. That's an animal showing either high resistance to parasite or is just have a low worm count or fecal count. So
Excellent.
you wanna be in the fourth, or actually I'm sorry. So going from top, the first or second image is where you want your animals to be. And promise you guys, it's just as simple as catching your goat, looking at the eyes, and just getting a quick check. A lot of times animals show signs of worms by having diarrhea. So if you see an animal that, you know, it's a dry season, it shouldn't be scouring because of, you know, high moisture in the grass or the feed or the forage, and you see an animal that is scouring, it's typically a sign of if there's a stomach issue going on, and it could be worms. What I typically do before I deworm is I treat to stop the diarrhea. My first mode of action is, let me stop this diarrhea. And once I stop it, and there are some drugs that are maybe unique to US, Spectogard is one of my favorite, and I'm not sure what you guys have at your disposal, maybe some kind of sulfur drugs is what you have. But before I deworm the animal, I stop the diarrhea by giving it something antidiarrheal, even as something as local as Pepto-Bismol can help with diarrhea. Then I treat, because the last thing you want to do is give the animal deworm. You want to is to deworm the animal, and all of that worm just goes through the system, and you would have wasted it. It didn't get a chance to, you know, work its way through properly in the intestines or the digestive system.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that wisdom, Sam. You know, since we are on the body here and we're looking at different parts, you know, how about we go up here and maybe talk about a little bit of body score conditioning? You know, so now that we look at the internal aspect of the animal, and you can look at the eyes visibly to see about the worming. Tell us about body condition scores, if you don't mind, and what you're
So
looking for.
let me just ask you this: you're talking that based on U.S. standards or worldwide
No,
standards?
Caribbean standards. Caribbean
Caribbean
standards.
standards? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Which is a representation of a true goat. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that, guys. Let me take out the politics out of it. So if I can see well, and in my old age, I'm not seeing too good, but the animal on the black boar-looking goat, BC4, yes. So that's one that At this point is where you want to bring that animal prior to breeding. Um, three is acceptable as an overall herd goal. You know, if a female is milking, she can look like a 3, because now she's a lot of her nutrients is going to production of milk to tend to her babies. So 3 is acceptable for an animal that is milking, or is raising their babies. 5, if based on the image, it says 5 is a body condition score of 5, and it says it's a beast. So if you have a beast animals, unless Dominica is having a national show and you want to show off how fat and nice your animals are, then you want to keep your animals in 5. But a safe place to have your goats productively is 3 or 4 for me. And that's just my opinion, guys. A lot of folks in the US want their animal 5, and if they could have a grade called 6, they would have it at 10. So, you know, and to me, shout out to all my big ladies, but to me, you know, when you have an obese animal, there's a propensity to have there may be a higher chance you're at risk for some kind of diseases, or in the case of livestock, an obese animal is typically a non-productive animal. So I bought a female maybe 3 years ago, and she was out of some very good breeding. I did some embryo transfer, got a bunch of eggs out of her, and she kidded one time after. And because this animal was such an outstanding animal just for me to look at, she was one of my go-to animals. I kept her around even though she wasn't, she was cycling but not sticking. And I tried drugs, I tried different type of synchronization strategies, but and this animal I had paid upwards of $3,000 for, but that she was worth every penny. But then at some point I had to say, well, girl, you're beautiful, love to see you, but you're just not paying for your feed. You're not working. And so I had to make the tough decision to haul her down the road for about, I think I might have gotten about $380 for her. So that helped pay for feed, but I had to take her to the slaughter. I had to sell her to a butcher. Wow. So, you know, sometimes you just have to make those decisions. You know, it doesn't make sense. A couple of things it doesn't make sense. You know, I remember I had a tough conversation with my dad. He had about 6 or 7 bulls at one time on maybe 80 cows. And he just loved seeing his bulls, you know. and I sometimes have that same issue where I have a bunch of bucks on my property. But I may have a little bit of different reason why I have that many at times. But, you know, it doesn't make sense having an animal that is not being productive and just keeping it on the farm just because it looks good, but you know for a fact that it's not productive, it's not breeding, it's not milking, it's just eating feed. And so sometimes we have to make those tough decisions irrespective of what we paid for it. Sometimes we just have to take the loss and move on and use that money for another animal or something. And it's tough, tough. But I've had to do that a few times in my experiences where I love the animal, but you're not doing your job.
Yeah, Sam, in the beginning of when I first started rearing goats, that was one of the toughest things for me as well. Really tough because I loved all of them. I said, well, all of them have value. but in the long run, the reality is it may
It
not be
costs.
so, right? It costs you so much. So sometimes, and so Sam, are you familiar with this animal right here?
I believe that's where have I seen that buck before? Is that Conan? Is that
That's yeah. You sent me that photo, by the way. But did you send me this photo here? Not this one. This one right here. Next one coming up. This one.
no. I
You
think
didn't.
those animals are those look like they're from Julie Miller.
Okay, got it. Got it. Take a look at this. So let's talk about, for example, this animal here. And I have the rest of yours in a separate file, so I'll pull them up. But this is a milk goat, which I mean, we mostly in the Caribbean we deal with meat goats. So even if it's not a heavier goat, but what do you can you tell us about the body score condition or
That's a very good question you asked
yeah,
because not sure if you guys know, but I had a contract with the Jamaican government to deliver 200 animals to them last year, and about 60 of them were dairy goats, and I'm a meat goat guy. And the closest dairy goat that is maybe dual purpose is the Nubian goat. And so I remember I went all the way to Tennessee to pick up that buck. And he was a handsome prize. In fact, I bought him for myself because I had another deal going on. But we have to understand that dairy animals are not going to be fat, must never be fat, including the Anglo-Nubians. If you have a fat dairy animal, it's because that breeder is either pumping it with nutrients so it can, because the payoff is that that animal will produce more milk. But the standards for dairy animal, their number one functionality is milk production, not meat. So the same thing for Jersey. So that's the old man Conan right there. He would be, to a lot of the US breeders, that buck would be considered to be a fat dairy goat or fat Nubian buck. Even though, his conformation is great, Conan has a lot of things going on for him, but to American standards, most of the dairy, they do not keep their animals over a 3 or
wow,
body score condition of 3.
yeah,
So
that's big.
you have to understand, okay, what animal am I interested in? What animal am I raising or purchasing? And understand that it should never, a Jersey cow or should never look like a Black Angus cow.
Exactly.
Two different purpose, two different breed standards.
Excellent. Sam, let's talk about one more thing that will open up to the members for question and answer. So now, if you want to maintain that body score condition, you have the worm you have the shelters down, you have the worming down. Let's talk about nutrition a little bit, and that's also on our educational page on the DLC website. So let's talk about nutrition. What should we feed our goats in the Caribbean? What should we be feeding them? Should we be looking at supplements? What are some of the things that you feel important for us to know in the Caribbean, especially Dominica, to be able to support the people with some ideas on what we should be feeding?
So the first thing we have to do before we even consider feeding is how healthy is that gut? So we want to make sure we have an animal that has a healthy gut, meaning it is parasite free or has a very low parasite count, which would either be coccidiosis or worms. And so you want to make sure that those animals have very low count, and one of the easiest way to do that is to do a fecal count. And it goes back to getting in contact with your local vets. It's worth doing fecal count or having someone do the fecal count for you guys. Lester, that need to be a training that some of the key folks on this team supports themselves and the other farmers in how to do fecal count so that they're additional resource for the local veterinarians, because that can help you determine how healthy that animal's gut is. So you want to have a healthy gut, first of all. Little bragging right now, I pride myself on feeding the cheapest feed, whatever is on sale at my feed store. So today, while I was in College Station, I picked up 3 tons of cow feed. Forgive me, guys. Don't judge me. I brag that I have animals that can convert cheap feed or low quality feed into muscle. And worse off, it's the winter time for me. So my animals, they really, really look good in the winter, because they're not moving as much. They're not going as far out to pasture. I have hay closer up to them 24/7, where they either have the option of going to pasture or eating hay, or both. But typical goats requires about 10 to 14% crude protein in their diet. What we need to understand is when you see animals with a high body score condition, that's not necessarily a true representation of muscle. That's a representation of fat coverage. And when you have an animal that is fat, it also has a lot of internal fat with it. So if you talk to your butcher, he'll tell you that, man, I bought these goats that you're feeding this nice feed. They look good, but I had to take out 10, 15 pounds of fat out of the stomach, because, so, and that's why I say, not every fat animal is productive. So you want to have healthy gut. So make sure that you're doing your fecal count, understanding the internal parasite level of the animal. You want to give the animal, and so the healthier the animal is, the bottom line is, what I really want you to gather from this conversation is, the healthier the animal is, the higher probability of you giving it a lower quality feed to convert into muscle. So it starts with gut condition, then nutrient concentration, for want of a better word. Understood? So we wanna kind of make sure, and then once you get to, okay, we have a healthy gut, we're feeding it the required amount of protein and fat and carbs. And personally, I think a 3% fat in your feed is pretty good. I honestly, for shows, I typically add a little bit more fat in mine, because I want that outer fat, that extra conditioning. Because in America, these folks, they like to see a fat goat, and no matter how perfect the condition is, some folks go extreme and they're feeding supplements with 60-70% fat. I don't know how they sleep at night, because I'd be scared my goat would be just like, I'm not accustomed to this kind of food, so I'm gonna just die. So anyway, you wanna give it about let's say a 12 to 15% protein to a healthy animal, 3% fat. You want to make sure you're giving the animal as much forage or foliage to make sure that the gut is stimulated. Trace minerals is key, guys. Always ensure that you have either loose minerals or the mineral blocks. And please understand, salt block, the white blocks, them by themselves is not good enough. That's just sodium chloride. You want to give, and there's nothing wrong giving your goats cattle mineral blocks. I think the only restriction is for sheep. If the block has copper or a high percent copper, you may want to make sure you avoid exposing your sheep to minerals with mineral blocks with copper inside of it. Just one cool thing, guys, and it's a practice that I still do today. You know, we know that feed prices are high. When I was in Jamaica, one of my passion was mixing protein blocks. And it's really a combination of molasses, feed or urea, which that requires a little bit of technicality, so you may want to be very, very careful about that. But something with a high protein source, some filler material, and calcium carbonate or white lime or even cement. That was something that we used back in, you know, when I was young in the business. I used to mix a lot of blocks, protein blocks for my animals. And it's really, you know, the molasses is really fermented sugar. So the animal is getting pretty much, you know, a nutrient dense block. So it's really, it's almost, Lester, are you familiar with the cattle blocks?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I used to make like a 5-gallon paint tub. I used to mix my own version of that with molasses. And if you have access to molasses like we did in Jamaica, so today I don't mix it myself. I buy the pre-mixed blocks, and I tell you something. You talk about a feed cost saver. I mean, it's nutrient dense. It's good nutrition because you have the fermented sugar there, which is just direct to the animal. You have high percent protein, and it also limits the amount of the animal will consume. That's why you normally have a cement or some kind of adhesive component to keep it in that block form or semi-block form. So real guys, if you get a chance, try and explore that option as a feed source or feed supplement to your animals, because it can minimize. I hope there's no feed store guy in here. I don't mean to sabotage your business.
No, it's good, Sam, because I'll tell you, you know, in Dominica, Sam, it's not like we have a lot of access to many things, okay? It's very limited down there. And we have one of our members, Dr. Coulson George on the line, and he has he has a feed, you know, he does some feed, he does medications as well. He actually just posted some of them on the group. And so I'd recommend us talking, but I'll tell you, that is one of the things that the Dominica Livestock Cooperative is going to be doing, is we're going to start importing specifically for our members first, and then other people secondarily, other farmers secondarily is what I mean, is we're going to start importing molasses, importing a lot of the supplements. And another thing we talked about is having a directory of all of the plants in Dominica, and so that we can create a supplement specifically for Dominica.
So you know, and I don't know the name what you guys call it here, but another thing that I was thinking about while I was talking about shelters, fencing. So there's some forums out there, some goat chats, especially to the Jamaican community that I used to be on, and I saw a guy bought a bunch of fence material, some wood posts to do his fencing. So didn't know the guy from anywhere, but I just say, you know, let me reach out to this guy and give him a little bit of education. And I say, hey, if you can get your money back, you may want to consider using some of these. We call it quick stick in Jamaica. It's a plant, it's a legume, high in protein, but it can be used as a post, and you stick it in the ground. You know, typically I get something which is about 3 inches in diameter. Stick it in the ground, put some water to it if it's in dry season, or just stick it in the ground in the wet season. And within weeks, it starts to grow leaves. So now you're getting a dual purpose benefit from it. You're getting a live post, which is a tree, and you're getting a plant that is nutrient dense with protein. And so you want to start looking into, and I'm not sure how much access you guys have to the Bodles Research Center in Jamaica. Man, I tell you guys, if you I don't know if they publish the information, but I was before subscription was a thing. I was an avid person trying to gain knowledge from okay, so that is, which one is that now?
Is that, I think that's the tree. Is it Glory Cedar you're talking about? It looks
Not-
like this, or different, something different?
It could be that one. Yeah. You look, yes.
The Glory Cedar, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we call it in Dominica, Glory Cedar.
There's another one called wild tamarind. Do you know what a tamarind or
Yes,
Jamaica,
yes, we do.
we mess up words, but
Yeah.
it's tamarind. We call it wild tamarind, and that's another high protein one that you can. I remember when I was in junior college in Jamaica, I did a study on collecting the plants and putting it to wilt or dry, and I would store. I mean, gosh, it was a bunch of it I stored, and I was doing some protein analysis on the dried to see what was the difference with, if the protein content had leached, and I believe it was a significant difference based on that study. But there's quite a few things that you can, plants out there that you can use to supplement your animal's diet.
That's correct. Yeah, and I believe the local term for us for that one, Sam, is zing zing in Dominica.
Zing zing. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Sam, you gave us a breadth of knowledge and wisdom tonight, and I just want to do a quick summary, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A, okay, from our members. So the first thing Sam gave us this evening, 10 steps in how we can grow proper animals in Dominica. Number one, a roof and dry floor. Number two, keep it simple. Number three, clean that facility very frequently. When we say frequently, make sure that the animals are not walking on feces or in urine, right? Number four, have an area to quarantine newly purchased animals to your farm. Number five, work with a local vet. Number six, make sure your animals have healthy guts. Number seven, observe their fecal count, which we'll be talking about that more later, about looking at under microscopes and all that, which the Dominica Livestock Cooperative is going to be launching something for the farmers so that we can teach on fecal count. That's going to be important. Number eight, I apologize. Goats require about 14 to 16% protein in their feed with at least 3% fat content, right? Number nine, trace minerals, mineral blocks, and supplements are important. And number 10, make sure you have proper fencing to protect your animals, right? So Sam, with those 10 things tonight, we're just so grateful. I mean, we could talk about goats, you and I, for the rest of the year, right? And we just started in 2025. But I want to make sure that we open up the floor to our members right now.
Great.
Anybody that's a Dominica Livestock Cooperative member, and you can unmute yourself. I recommend if you can share your video as well, it would be helpful for Sam. That way he can see you and interact with you. The floor is open now to our members. Thank you, Sam, again.
Otherwise, I'll be picking on names.
I can pick on them too, don't worry. All right, how about I start here? Let's see, I see several. So I see Cornell Mills, I see Dr. George, I see Dylan, I see Magdalene, I see VJ as well. Anybody else I see Norman. Would anybody of you like to ask Sam a question tonight? Could be anything, not even including what we talked to. I see Tasha Brumant as well, that's a member. Go ahead. Floor is open, everybody. I believe everybody can unmute themselves already.
Don't be shy, guys. I've been talking for 1 hour.
Sam, everybody, greetings. Question. What is the most effective dewormer you would recommend?
So that's a frequent question, but that's a very broad question. Dewormers are specific to certain species of worms. And so it's based on what stage the animal is in or what worms, what type of worm is affecting that animal or that animal is loaded. And that's why you know, for years, man, for years, I was the guy who just buy whatever is on the market that's popular, whatever everybody is using that is effective. And there were times when I was wasting thousands of dollars because, you know, when I buy stuff, I buy it in bulk, and I may spend $1,000 wasting on something that I didn't need because somebody.
Yeah.
So my best recommendation to you, sir, is try and understand, get a fecal. Do you guys have any access to fecal count? Is that something that your vet could help you with?
Yes, definitely.
Man, if you can do that, that will save you. That'll give you a true understanding of exactly what's going on with that gut. So I would strongly recommend. And there are some wormers that does not. You know, I had a guy from Bahamas. Him and I were talking last night, and he said he's using Safeguard on his animals. And I'm like, Safeguard? Because that has never worked for me. Now, I'm in the southern part of Texas where it's a lot of humidity here. It's just, it's tough. It's tough keeping animals alive. But then he said he's giving them 50 mLs. I'm not so sure how. That seemed like a very high dose, irrespective of it. But
50 ml.
50 ml of Safeguard, which, you know, I've heard of people giving 60 ml Cydectin, which is that purple drug. It's actually a pour-on for cattle. And so I've heard people say, hey, either the animal is gonna die or I'm gonna kill it by deworming it, but I'm gonna do something. So, but yeah, the best answer, I don't wanna sound too philosophical and less practical, but really and truly, man, if you can connect with a vet or learn to do fecal count, you're winning right there.
All right then.
Yeah. And then we can have a conversation about which wormer to use that best supports, you know, lysine or getting rid of this type of worms. But I don't want you to throw good money away chasing bad money. You know what I'm saying?
Get you.
Good question.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks, Cornell. Anybody else? Floor is open again. Go ahead, BJ.
Good evening. I would like to ask two questions in one. Number one question would be, how would you know that you're buying a good animal in terms of its features? And number two, how do you rate an animal that you want to keep on your farm in terms of, let's say, for example, you're doing a meat goat, from birth to probably about 6 months to a year? How would you know that this animal is a keeper rather than wasting your time?
So how do you know you're buying a good animal? First of all, right?
Yes.
That's a tricky one. That one requires experience, and that one requires trust. That one requires integrity of the person who is selling that animal to you. Just like how I mentioned, I bought a goat for $3,500 a couple of years ago, and then she stopped kidding. But she was probably the best looking animal on my herd. I could easily turn around and sell that goat back for maybe $2,500 to $3,000 or even more, depends on how I market it. I didn't feel comfortable as a breeder to do that to somebody else, knowing that this animal is not producing. So I hauled it to the sale. So that's something that, first of all, let's just talk about integrity, and have everybody understand that in order for you guys to build your sector, have to work on the integrity. Not saying that there's a deficit or there's an issue, but I'm just saying, make sure that you're not the guy who is selling somebody a goat that you know that the butcher should be the one buying it. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're going to get a few $1,000s more. So tricky question, but the best answer I can give you is depend on the purpose of the animal. So if you're buying an animal that you're wanting, if I'm buying an animal from somebody, based on what I know, first thing I go by is pedigree, because I'm a pedigree junkie. And a lot of times I look at the pedigree before I even look at the animal. You guys may not have access to that information. So for me, that's what I do. Then I want to see who is the mother, who is the dad. Right? I want to see the parents. I've heard instances where, in the islands, where folks were not being truthful. So if you want to buy an animal, try and build a relationship with that breeder to where, hey, when is your kidding season start? Can I come visit your farm and select some animals that I may want to buy? And kind of build a relationship. Watch the animal grow. Unless it's a real reputable breeder, you just have to take it by faith. Whatever the breeder says or whatever the seller says, you're just gonna. So, and then we have to talk a little bit about body conformation or breed standards. So, depending on how technical you want to go, we can go all the way to that rabbit hole. But really and truly, in agriculture, it's usually a handshake and a trust business deal that we go by, and just have to hope for the best. But one of the things I say about America, fat goat sells. If a blind man passes and he sees, you said there are two horses, first thing he's going to ask you which one is the better one, and if you tell him that it's the fat one, he's going to say, yeah, that's the better one because fat sells. You know what I'm saying? So you wanna understand what you're looking at. Because sometimes even though fat sells, and believe me guys, if I'm taking a goat to a show, I have to get it in a decent body condition. I can't take a skinny goat there. So I also I won't supplement my animal with a bunch of crazy stuff that they give him, but I do supplement my animals, with extra feed. Instead of giving the buck 2.5, 3 pounds of feed daily, I may give it 5 pounds of feed. I may add a little bit of, wheat germ oil to stimulate digestive activity with the microbes. I may do some extra stuff, but I'm not going to give the animal a bunch of drugs or a bunch of 70% fat. I just can't do that to an animal. So, so the first question was, how do you know that you're buying a good animal? It's all about understanding what you're buying, understanding, getting familiarized with, what you're buying or what you're interested in buying, and talk to get somebody who knows what a good quality animal is and say, hey, Sam Golding wants to sell me this goat. Do you think it's a good goat? What's your opinion? Your second question, you had another good question. What was the second question again? It was about Lester.
It was about how do you detect, how do you select or what determines you keeping an animal based on how it progressing, something like that.
So as a
Yes.
breeder, I used to be very, very strict in culling animals. And that's when I was developing my herd to where I could truly understand what genetics work and what bloodlines work and and when I say work is, I go based on predictability. I want to know, I typically try to assume that this is what I'm going to get based on crossing these two lineages. And so what I typically do in selecting the animal is understanding the genetics, which is something that you guys are limited to, but looking at the growth rate of that animal. Now, there are times I've bought or I've kept the runt of the litter before. I have a buck that is a multi-champion buck, Cannon Fire, rest in peace. He was the runt out of 4, but he had the best conformation. And he was the one I kept, but he was out of quads, you know, and so I knew that his issue was he was born the smallest, and he wasn't far smaller than his siblings, but he just wasn't getting the nutrient early enough. So I ended up keeping him. His brothers went to Mexico. His sister I still have on the ranch, and yeah, that ended up to be one of my best bucks I've ever raised. So you wanna look at different factors. You wanna look at, you know, growth rate. You wanna look at conformation if that's something that you're interested in. You wanna look at, okay, and here's something that you have to, it's good to build a rapport with a breeder. Sometimes the biggest kid in the kidding pen is a single kid. So one of the things I never do, I never keep a buck for myself that's a single kid, because I'm not necessarily getting a true representation on how competitive that animal is. That animal would have started off with a highly competitive edge over the rest of animals that I'm gauging it against. So unless it's just spectacular, and if I keep it, which I can't remember any incident where I kept it for long, and when I'm selling an animal, I declare that this is a single kid. Some people don't care, but me personally, I don't keep or I don't buy single kids. Because it's typical the best looking kid out there, because it has no competition. It's getting every mama's milk, kind of like a kid that's just spoiled. But forgive me now, guys. Let me just give this disclaimer, BJ. That is my practice. That doesn't mean that if a single kid is born, he's not good or she's not good. I just don't keep singles for myself.
Thank you, Sam. That was a great response. BJ, back to you.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to know. Also, I was thinking, for example, like you said, that we might not have the luxury of testing the pedigree and stuff like that. Can you determine it as to certain features that the goat have? For example, the stance, the rump, the size of the head. As a kid, can you use certain factors in you purchasing an animal?
So that goes back to when I said breed standards. It depends. It's based on the breed of animal. So for a Nubian cannot be. You can't truly measure a Nubian to a Alpine, because they're different breed standards. One have Roman nose, one have. But to simplify your response to your question is, a buck needs to look like a buck. He needs to be robust. He needs to be solid. He needs to have good length. He needs to stand square on his feet. And another hidden thing that a lot of people don't see about a buck, but I strongly recommend you guys do it, is understand the sexual aggressiveness of the buck. Meaning, expose that buck when he's about 6, 7, 8 months to a female. Expose him to a mature female to where he gets accustomed to mating. Because the worst thing you want to do is keep that buck for a 1.5 years, 2 years before you breed it, and he has no earthly idea what to do when a female is flagging her tail in front of her. There's nothing wrong with breeding your bucks early. I don't recommend putting a young buck kid that is 6, 8 months to 30 does. That's not good. But when the animal is about 6, 7, 8 months, if he's of size and sexual maturity, expose him. So that's one hidden thing about a buck. You want to have, and I'm gasping for words because in my mind it's breed specific what I look for. So for example, let's talk about boar goats. In a boar goat, the buck needs to have, you know, strong masculine features from its facial expression, need to have a decent Roman nose. It doesn't have to be half moon. It could be sloped, but it needs to have a good curvature in its face. Need to have strong jaws, because that's something that transcends down to its hereditary. And you know, they use their mouth for chewing, so you need to have strong jaws. Nostrils need to be wide and bold, where, you know, in the case where the animal needs to travel far distance, it's able to help its body with good respiration. Like I mentioned, strong on its feet, sound on its feet. Get familiarized with sickle hock in the back end. That's when, you know, it's kind of like a person who has knock knees in the back. Sometimes you'll have animals that their knees bending on the back leg. You don't want to have that. You don't want to have it widely bowed either. You want it to be square, both on front and back. So it's almost like a block you're building on a, you know, picture one of those cement blocks that you build houses with. That's how I look at it. It needs to be a rectangle animal from top to bottom. That's really what I look for. Needs to have good muscling, wide enough shoulders. One of the craziness that happened in America in recent years, we went to the extreme where we wanted shoulders that were 2.5 feet wide. Now that looks good and that looks like a muscle factory. Problem that we don't hear is a lot of farmers cry when they have to pay that vet bill because its kids come out with those same features and you're having to pull babies out. Mothers can't easily, they don't have birth and ease because the chest is too wide. So you want a moderate chest that is still going to give you good good muscling. You want to have a good spring of ribs, so the rib cage should never be just flat down like that. You want to have a spring of rib that gives you good capacity for both breathing and ingestion of feed. So you want an animal that has a wide rib cage which supports the organs, the heart, the lungs, and then you want it to be more wedged towards the front end. So like a female, you want the female to be wedged this way, to where she's wedge shaped more towards the udder. On a male, you want him to be more wedge shaped towards where the bulk of his mass is in the first third of his structure. You want to have a good tail set. A lot of these American breeders have bred these animals where their top line is just level like that. What that does is at times it creates issues with kidding on the females. So you want to be very careful on, you know, how straight that top line. It needs to have a slight curvature. You don't want it to be round at the rump where it drops down. So give me another picture of that buck, because he's a good representation. All right, so this the picture I'm in the blue jacket, that side view. Okay, so right above that Terra's hand and that tail set, you see how he's not aggressively sloped. He's sloped, but he's reasonably sloped down. That's what I like. Some folks in the American sector wants it to be level, you know, and I personally realize that a lot of the folks that I know, when they breed that into their herd, those traits creates kidding problems because it's just too straight. The animal needs to have, that female needs to have a slight, I don't want to say dip, but a slight drop in the rump area.
Nice. Any other pictures you want to show, Sam? A feature of a good
So
example on here?
there's that female right here. That
This-
dapple-headed. No, to the left. Go to the left. Or my left. You're right. Probably.
This one?
No, go back to the images. So it's right. Go the next one. So you see the one where it's the
You
same.
can control
female
my
with the
screen now. You can control my screen now. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just click on them out. Yep, there you go.
So this is what I'm saying. This is what, to me, this is like, I mean, this girl is amazing. She has everything. She is solid on her front end. She has a massive front end, but it's not to where it's bowed out and wide. It's just a lot of power right there. I don't want it any bigger than what she has. And I wish I had, that's her mother beside her actually. And she, you know, good characteristics. But if you notice, you know, she has a good head. It's not too curved where you can have breathing issues, because sometimes these boars and Nubians, if their nostril is too moon shaped, it can create either parrot mouth issues or goodness, what's that other, you have parrot mouth and you have the other mouth issue that they have, the underbite, sorry. So you want to have a reasonable curve in there, but not too deep of a curve. If you see how she transcends, she has a nice length on her neck. And if you notice, her horn set is curled over perfectly with her, how the shape of her nostrils. Then we want to go over to her neck. This goat has a pretty decent to long neck. She is one that can climb on the tree and reach to that branch that a short-necked animal could not reach to. So one of the things I like about, you know, when I'm selecting goats for me, they have to have that body length. So if you look on this doe right here, that body right here, that length, I mean, she's probably about 3.5, 4 feet long from chest floor to her butt end. That's a long goat, and that's really what I breed for. I breed for that long body, because that tells me that I can always pack on the muscle with the right buck. She has it all. In fact, she's an ex-show doe of mine. So, you know, and I wish you could see a better view, but of a frontal view, but she has a massive spring of ribs in this area. If you notice above the shoulder, here is called the withers. She doesn't dip, and nor is it spaced apart if you were on top. She doesn't have loose shoulder, nor does it dip right here. This is what you call a smooth transition on her top line, where it rolls from her neck over her shoulders. Her loin and girth area is quite level. And then there's a slight dip in her back. Some folks like it to where it's a straight, because it just looks better in a show ring. But I personally, even though I win shows, I don't breed for shows. I breed to purpose. So I want an animal that I don't need to call the vet in the middle of the night because I'm having problems pulling out a kid. And so these are some of the qualities that you look for when you're looking at a female. Then if you could see her bags. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I apologize. You have a question from Dr. George right now too.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr.
Hey, Dr.
Yeah,
George.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, what age would she be there in that photo?
She's probably a 4-year-old right there.
Okay. I have 2 more questions. Do I ask now or do I ask after?
Oh, sure. Anytime.
Okay, so she's about 4 years there, you say. Now, I have what might seem like a peculiar question.
Okay.
Have you ever seen? Okay, so you know the goats usually have nice straight hair. have you ever seen them like with puffy hair that the hair becomes fluffy somewhat?
Yes, yes.
Okay, do you know why, or what's the explanation?
So are you talking about a Boer goat? Are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
bow.
Boer was developed with a mixture of different breeds, and so there are times when that cashmere here, because cashmere was one of the breeds that they used to develop the Boer, sometimes that pops back up, and so it may not be as coarse as a cashmere, but you'll see it. Now I'm gonna tell you an unfortunate situation that we have in the U.S. We have breeders that are feeding supplements to make the hair longer. And what that does, when the hair is longer and you take it to a show, you can add some chemicals that puffs out that hair. So it gives that, sorry to say this, guys, I apologize. But it gives the illusion that the animal is bigger. So a lot of my Jamaican farmers are actually crying right now because they bought a lot of goats from up north that from multiple sales, and it's really a sad story because these guys work hard for their money, and I don't wish that on anybody. But they bought these animals, and when they went to Jamaica from up north, the hair started falling off, and it's all there was a lot of back and forth with some breeders in the US and buyers in Jamaica about this was the wrong goats. So it's something that course here is something that in the shoring they favor here because they can sculpt and carve it to give the animal a better illusion. But it's not a bad thing as long as it's not lice or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, okay, because I have a boa buck that is, well, when I bought him, the hair was all nice and smooth and normal goat hair. And recently he has kind of cashmered up a bit. So I'm like, is it the feeding? Is it the temperature? Is it so I was just
They will
yeah.
Boer goats will naturally get a little bit more shag. We call it shag on their hair during the winter. You have some animals that just won't grow the hair much, but typically their hair in the winter months, once it's getting cool, that's just their natural way of adjusting or acclimatizing to the change of temperature, especially this time through maybe March or so when we have cooler weather.
Okay.
So it may be normal. If you have any major concerns, the only concern I would have with that is to ensure that it's not housing any external parasites. So you may want to kind of check for that, but you shouldn't have a problem. That's not an issue. It may just
Yeah. In
not
terms,
look as nice as you would like to see it.
yeah, in terms of parasite, no, it's okay. I don't have that issue so far.
Yes.
Nutrition, feeding. So you have times that you show goats and you want to fatten them up, not
Yes.
obese them, but fatten them up. What would be your typical procedure to fatten up your goats? How do you feed your goats? Basically, that's my question. How do you feed your goats?
Are you talking about how do I feed the goats for show?
No, I don't really want to tell me what to show. I just trying to figure out, like, if you're doing that for show, it should work for your normal goats anyway. So
No, it
how do
doesn't.
you
Not for me.
really?
Not for my. If
Okay.
I'm feeding, there's a difference because, so one of my problem is, guys, is I I do not feed a lot of show feed. The feed that I bought today was a 14% goat feed. And I think the fat percentage is 3.5. It has good trace minerals in it. So I have a major show coming up in March, which is the Houston Livestock Show. It's right in my backyard, so I always represent. A lot of breeders from all over the country will be there, and most of them have already, since October, would have already started prepping their goats. Two of the bucks that I'm planning on taking to that show, got exposed to more females yesterday and one today. One got one female today. And I shook my head because I said to myself, every year I do the same thing. And that's supposed to be, I'm sharing that story because I prioritize breeding over a ribbon personally. But for a show goat, I will start to increase the fat to about 4.5%. That's the most I'm going to give my goats in for fat, because like I said, I would rather have my bucks alive, doesn't have a heart attack, because it's just has too much internal fat. For my feeding regime in my general herd, they have Adlib protein blocks. I buy the 250-pound blocks and I put them out in different pastures, so they have to walk out to get it, so they get their exercises. And then, so my mother herd right now is about, let's say, 90 does. My pregnant mothers, that's probably, they may be getting about 1.5 pounds of feed right now, hopefully.
So that's a pound and a half of concentrate.
Concentrate,
In terms of the grass, the hay,
yeah, so I have pasture. I have pasture.
So they're just free out in the pasture,
Yes,
grazing
yes.
until time comes.
I do pasture rotation. Now I also, if you go on my Facebook, there was an image of the hay I feed. I don't buy the small square bales. I buy the large 1,500 pound, and I get the tractor to take them off. But that's what I put out, and I put it to where the animals don't waste them. So yeah, that would be me getting some bales from my hay guy, and I'll put those out, and they have access to that if they choose to eat hay. And typically what I notice with my goats, at nighttime, they'll feel hungry and they'll go grab some of that hay. It's not in the pasture, it's right by the external portion of the holding pen or the lofting area.
If I could ask, so how much would a bale of hay like that cost?
That one, I think I got, it was $85 a bale, 1,500 pounds. But I think I got no, that's a lie. I think I paid $70 because I'm a frequent customer, or I'm a long-term customer of his. I think he's up to like $90 a bale right now. Now that's just, the prices are a little bit lower right now because this year has been we've had reasonably good rainfalls. Last 2 years, this time, that same bale would have been about $200.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Alan, you're up.
Thanks, Lester. Good evening to everybody. Good evening, Sam. Thanks for coming on and sharing information with us. Highly appreciate it.
Blessing.
Yeah, man. I just had a few questions for you. As it relates to, well, let's see. The first thing I have here on the list, yeah, in terms of your worming procedure, I had a question as it relates to the barber pole worm in particular. How you go about treating that? And I guess the second question is kind of similar in terms of can you actually over deworm your goats? Because I've had a few experts tell me, well, you can, they don't deworm at all unless they actually have to, because if you deworm too much, they can, they would, well, the worms actually get, how do they say it? Immune. Yeah. Right. Immune, if you overuse it. So that, my question was around that.
Go ahead.
Well, I have two other questions, but I guess I could ask it after you answer those first.
No problem. So one thing about deworm for me, because I spend a lot of money on my genetics, and especially if it's a genetic that I feel strongly about, I'll spend whatever my pocket can afford. Not that I'm rich or anything like that. I'll sacrifice other things to buy a goat. That's one of the problems I have. Maybe that's an addiction. But anyway, when you make an investment on an animal, I'd rather overdose the animal than underdose it. And I respect every vet. I'm not a vet. I'm not a trained, animal health personnel. But it's difficult when you make your investment and you lose an animal because you probably didn't go as aggressive as you should. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the drugs that are out there, there's no research for goats, or there's little or none for deworming goats. A lot of the labels at best are for sheep, and goats are, man, I tell you, goats are tougher to raise than any other livestock species, in my opinion, because they can be delicate in terms of if you have a bad operation going on, you can lose a lot of goats real quick, or you can lose a lot of money trying to regain the health of your animals. So I typically go a little bit more aggressive on my deworming program. In terms of frequency, because of my herd size, I cannot walk through the herd and grab a goat and catch it and look at the eyes. So what I do is I do a routine deworming program. If I see an animal that is losing condition, then what I do is I check the eyelids and I'll try to get some fecal samples, send it over to my vet to see what's going on. I can do fecal, but to me, I leave expert stuff in experts' hands. And so I subscribe to the activity of being a little bit more aggressive than what the label says.
Okay, so in that case, all right, so well, actually, I guess you answered that question earlier, because I was gonna ask you if you switch between different type of dewormers, but then you said it depends on the particular worm that it has, right?
So
then
I'm sorry, but that's a very good question that you asked. That's the answer, but I do not recommend switching too often either, because that's really how you develop a super immune parasite right there, when you start switching. And so here's the result of accident. Because we in the US switched so much and farmers were using this one this time, this one this time, we developed some super immune worms that nothing was working. So what what they did some studies, or someone came up with a brilliant idea to do a concoction. And I think it's a lady from the islands who is in one of those northern university who did that research. But she was the first one I heard with doing this concoction. Rest in peace, lover. She recommended using Cydectin, Valbezin, which is a white dewormer. Cydectin is the purple dewormer, and Prohibit, which is the same as Levamisole. That was the concoction that she developed, and then everybody started using it, and then it stopped working. So that's the only way I would recommend using. I wouldn't switch. I would do a concoction type stuff.
Okay, so in terms of the barber pole worm, how would you, or which worm in particular you would recommend most effective for barber pole?
So I just got, I'm just using one. I just started using it maybe about, I did about 40 Dolins a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. and I use one called Valcon. I believe it's Valcon, and it's an injectable. It's a combination of the same active ingredient in Dectomac and Levamisole, but it's in an injectable format. And I think they recommended 2 per 100 ml. Because Sam is Sam, he went a little bit over and above and broke the rules as usual. And I did 3 per 100 pound. So that's the newest one that I'm seeing. It's really easy to administer because it's an injectable. You just put it subcutaneous, and that's yet to be determined. I'm seeing some improvement in. There was maybe 2 Dolins that was kind of off, but I wasn't sure if it was worms at the time. I didn't do a fecal, unfortunately, on those 2, but because I assumed that they were losing a little condition because they were being bullied by some other females, other young Dolins in the set. So yeah, that's the one. But there's some good ones out there. Quest, or it's called Poison, not Quest, but man, I'm so sorry. It just depends on what's available to you. If I knew what was available to you, I could give you a list of stuff. But
Well, I think locally, one of what's available, like ivermectin, intermectin, and maybe Dr. George.
Ivermectin Plus. Ivermectin Plus is the one. If I'm using Ivermectin, I'll use the Plus. If you can get a hold of the Plus, because that one helps with barber pole. The regular Ivermectin injectable, that is not the Plus. That's very good for external parasites. Not familiar with that one. What's the active ingredient in it?
Yeah, Dr. George, you want to come up and share Sam again? Dr. George just texted me that a little bit of details. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, that is a full spectrum. It actually has a combination of 3. Is
wow.
the triclobendazole, the ivermectin, and fenbendazole.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I think
5%.
It's at 1 ml to 50 kilograms.
Wow. And is it an injectable or is it an oral?
No,
Okay.
that one is oral. It's oral.
Okay, that's all right. That's it. And is it working?
So far, it is actually, yeah.
Hey, that's your medicine to go. If it works.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one before, but you sparked my interest. Maybe I have to figure out how I can get some of that to the US.
Okay.
Wow.
We can talk after.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Dr.
Dr.
George, I'll take it Monday for that one.
Okay.
Yes, check
Yes,
out Dr. George.
Sam, I just had a last question though,
Yeah.
before I'm done. Was in relation to something you touched on earlier as it relates to the sexual activity of the bucks. So recently I did an import of a buck and 2 does, Savannah, purebred Savannah out of Antigua. And currently my buck is about, well, yeah, his date was October. So he's about 1 year and 3 months now. And of course, he's in a pen next to the other 2 does, but he shows no sort of interest whatsoever. I mean, I've tried everything, but he's just not showing no interest. So I'm figuring
What have
out
you
how
tried?
we
Give
can go
me an
about it.
example of what you tried.
Okay, well, letting him loose with them, like even trying and bring him close to them, like, like to try and make him smell them. I even tried, because I have another buck, very large guy. He's extremely sexually active. He's almost like a pure Nubian, very large guy. Stinks really, really bad. So I brought him close because I'm like, okay, well, if he smells, maybe he will take it as competition or something. Actually, I saw him start to, maybe like drink some pee and stuff, but after that kind of like died down.
Okay.
So
try this.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
here's what you can try. If you have access to a younger buck, so I like where you were going with getting another buck close by. What I've done before when I bought animals that just wasn't, boy, I tell you, it's the worst nightmare. When that comes, when I get a buck that is not showing any interest, I typically get a smaller buck that is less dominant or less intimidating. And I'll tie that smaller buck inside to the female in the area where the females are or the female in heat is. And to where the smaller buck, who is probably more aggressive, sexually aggressive, is showing interest but cannot mount that female. So very simple concept. So get a smaller buck that is less intimidating, less intimidating. Bring your buck, your Savannah buck or whichever buck that is not as aggressive as you want him to. Let him loose with the females. And once they see that competition, especially a competition where it's not a dominant male, so you were on the right track. The problem is that buck will not show much interest because he's scared that that big Nubian go whoop his behind him, right? So if you can get access to a smaller buck.
I actually have two young ones, and to be honest, they're actually trying to mount each other at just about like 3 months. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good buck. That's a good buck. So try and get one of those tied to where he can breed the female, but he can still show interest. Bring your Savannah buck close to the female or close to put the female and your Savannah buck in the same ear where that smaller buck will be that is aggressive, and you'll probably see a huge difference. But do not put a bigger buck in there with him because he is already going to say, hey, that big guy is going to discipline me. So yeah.
Okay, I just had to pause it.
But you know, I'll tell you another thing, because I'm about to buy a pretty high-powered buck in a few weeks, and my philosophy is the day a buck comes on my property that I've spent my hard-earned money, that night he must breed. So I've already synchronized 6 females. Because that buck may decide it's a good night to die or a good day to die. The next day I buy him. I better get something out of him.
Yeah.
So one of my practices, if the goat comes up, and I'm not going to buy a cheap buck because I'm going to buy quality that's going to improve or add value. If I'm spending that kind of money, you better be working that night. At the moment you get out of the trail and you drink some water and eat some hay, okay, hello, buddy, get to work. That's just my practice. I do not believe in investing your hard-earned money and keeping that buck in a palace, getting bigger, getting fatter, and 5 months later you do not even have a pregnant female to show. A lot of people get consumed with the idea, oh, I wanted to get him big. No. I want him to get to work, period. So next time you get one, try synchronize it. Get him to work, man. You got to see your money. It's a business.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, if I had the option of, switching, that would be great. But, we imported these animals and these are some first savannas on the island,
I understand. Congrats.
Yeah.
Best of luck with them.
Thanks
Thank you, Sam. Sam, one last question. I know we wanted, these are so good. I'm learning so much, Sam, already. We have one final question for the night from Kim and Tasha. And please take it away, y'all.
Okay, hi, good night, all.
Hey, good night.
Good night. Sam, yes. Okay, my question to you is with your years of experience, when do you think, or if you have noticed, when do you think that the females are more fertile? Is it recently after winning, or a month or two after?
But Tasha, let me tell you something. That's a power question you ask, because just 2024 was the first time I did this. I weaned the kids, and the day I weaned kids, I put a buck in, just an experiment. I just said, let me try, because one of my females was flagging. And I think there was about 17 does that got bred within a 2-week span right after weaning. So the response that I'll give you to that, yes, I've done it. I recently did it. It's worked. The key is, if you're going to breed that aggressively, which there's nothing wrong with that, make sure the animals are in good health and good shape to maintain that pregnancy, seeing that so one of the best things you want to do is make sure you give them an increase in their micronutrients, so their minerals, their trace minerals, their vitamins. Make sure that you know, because that kid in that gestation period took a lot of nutrients out of their body and macronutrients. Then to immediately turn around and rebreed, that's pretty aggressive. But you're thinking like a businesswoman, so congrats on that. But it's not a wide practice, and some people may frown upon it. But I did it last year, 2024, and it worked for me. But the recommendation I would give you is definitely invest in those inputs of trace mineral, and you may want to give her a little bit more feed during that weaning process. Previous to that, I would do the total opposite, forgive me, but I would starve the goat for a day or two just to get it to dry the udder up while the kid is weaning. But that's another conversation. Peter, I hope Peter is not on the call tonight. Hey, Peter, come arrest me now.
You wean at 3 months, is that?
I'm sorry?
You wean at what age? Just confirming.
So it depends. It depends on the time of year, but it could be early as 10 weeks, and it could be as late as, it depends on the mothers I have. First-time mothers, I'll wean as late as 14 weeks. So it just depends. It depends on the time of the year. It depends on what my time resources are like. I mean, when you manage a herd like I do, and you have a full-time job and a family and all these other activities, sometimes you think about it in the middle of the night and say, I need to do this, but it doesn't happen 2-3 weeks later. So just the reality of a farmer.
Well, Sam, what an evening tonight. Tasha Kim, I know you're going to just say something. Go ahead. I will wrap up.
No, I was just saying thank you for that.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
Well, Sam, you know what? You investing the time into us again. You know this. I'm so very grateful for your expertise, and thank you for always being selfless, and thank you for going above and beyond. And again, thank you for your kindness. I just want to feature a few animals. All the things you sent me is videos, me and you personally, but I forgot I have your website saved. So look at these beautiful dapples that Sam has as well.
You have that bias with dapples, and you want them dapples.
I do. I love them. I love them. You know, but look at these handsome guys, father and son, right, Sam? Here.
Yes.
Good.
And
then,
yeah.
Go ahead. Talk a little about them.
No. The father and son. The father is one of the closest South African genetics you could find. Actually, this buck is in Mexico right now. The father is in Mexico.
Wow, that's amazing, right? And these beautiful kids that are out of your herd. And yeah, I just want to appreciate your solid genetics.
So one second. I know we run out of time, but that's 6-month-old buck covering a 9 or 10, maybe 10-month-old doe. So this is his first exposure to a female and he was 6 months at the time. And I think, he was 5 months. Okay. So yeah, he was just a big boy for his age. And I decided I wanted to see if he would, and I think he covered her within maybe, I think it was 22 seconds before he got his first mount. So this guy is still in my herd. He's definitely a keeper.
Wow, beautiful. On that note, Sam, we want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. You kicked off our series, and I feel like a lot of people got value. I've been getting a lot of messages in the chat, and you're absolutely I wouldn't have it any other way but to have you on here with us, because you really kicked off us expanding our minds for what was possible in Dominica. And so for everybody else, please join us next week, Saturday. Dr. Ann Peichel is going to be on with us. She was the first person in the entire United States of America to import Kiko goats from New Zealand over. So you want to be on for next Saturday's call. And then, so I'll just leave it there. And then the rest of everything will be on our website. Please follow us on social media, Dominica Livestock Cooperative. I'm going to put it up here as well so that you can see the links that we have. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, and we have a YouTube page. We actually post a lot of valuable content. So I'm going to be dropping those in the chat as we speak. And please spread the word about what we're doing. We have several groups where you can, people can come and join. We have our WhatsApp community that they can join right here. So please, please, please make sure that you are spreading the word about what we're doing. And from what I understand, 2025, this year, is the livestock year. They're going to be featuring the livestock cooperatives. So in this coming Creole Fest season in November, the Dominica Livestock Cooperative is going to be featured. So Sam, I'm hoping that we can steal you from the United States to come and be one of our judges on the island. Right?
I'd love that. I'd love that.
We would love to come for you to grade our savannas, grade our local boas that we have, grade any of the local goats that we have, or our local, what we call our gatewas. Sam, that is a term that's for our local Creole goats, right?
They're important. They're an important subset of the goat population.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
Lester,
are.
can I say something real quick now?
Yes, please give us your
I
parting words.
feel compelled to say this, guys, and this from the bottom of my heart. Sound like we have a very diverse group, wide knowledge range, probably also wide range of personalities. And just one thing I want to beg you guys to always remember: in these groups, they start strong and then they fade away because of certain personalities. I am begging you guys, there's a unique strength within the Dominican group because of how well you work together. Never lose that. Never lose that component. Not to air dirty laundry, but some of the Jamaican groups have lost their way because of over competitiveness and over ego and a lot of other crap. But I am just begging you guys, in your darkest moment as a group, remember the purpose. All right? And that's all I want to leave with you guys.
Words of wisdom. Sam, we are honored that you were with us tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to spoiling you when you come to Dominica with us. I guarantee you, every single farmer on here will want you to pop by their farm, have a drink, come and have a good meal.
That's a perfect vacation if you ask me.
Hey, everybody, can we just say thank you to Sam and show him our love and appreciation? Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Blessing. Thanks.
Many thanks, Sam.
Come on, respect.
All right, Mr. Golden.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sam. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody. See you next week, Saturday, same time. Bye-bye.
Let not your heart be troubled.
Wipe away your tears
Your tears and your sorrows.
Cause I know love will conquer.